Okay, Greek equals science, wording, nomenclatures. YWHY. This is a tetragrammatron. Now, tron technically means instrument, not to get confused with tetragrammaton. Take the R, which is number 18, coincidentally, 666, and a tron is an instrument. Neutron, electron. Technically, we live in a biotron, which is what Earth is in evolution. So you have phylogenetics, phallus genetics, that's the Y. Then you have the mycelium here, which is epigenome, the X. Everything evolves from fungus. So this is going to diverge into two ways. It's going to become fungi, which is bone and nerve tissue, which is coral. And it's going to become fungi, which is flesh, porifera, sponges. It's also going to diverge into animals, such as trees. Yes, I call trees and plants animals because technically I believe that's what they are. And in my personal opinion, eukaryotic life forms are animals. So this feeds on hydrocarbons because Earth was very hydrocarbonic in early Earth in its history. So it feeds on hydrocarbons and produces carbohydrates. And this is a circle of life because we have to eat carbohydrates and we produce hydrocarbons. That's why our farts are technically flammable. So let's start with the plant lineage. It diverges two ways, okay? First, it evolves into algae and moss, which still use spores. And that's why algae and moss resemble spinal columns and mushrooms and little stars. And it's going to become a macrofungal network because mycelium, there's 8 miles of mycelium in each square inch of dirt. So there are spores and fungus all over the place on Earth. We're breathing them right now. And this is why trees are going to resemble a mushroom. They have their crown, they have their trunk, and just like us, they have limbs. Now, monocots technically are in multiples of 3. They have 3 leaves or in multiples of 3. Dicots have petals that are 4 or 5, which is 9, or multiples of 4 and 5 together, which is 9. And like in physics, the singularity, which is 5, is the bloom or algae flower. That's why plants bloom, algal bloom, and bloom ties with the light. You have fruits, which are a Y factor. You have, X factor. You have veggies, which are Y factors. And you're going to get the diamond, which is a square off center, which is a vertical. And you're going to get a square, which is X horizontal. You put those together, you're going to get. All right, so now with the bone and nerve and the flesh, you're going to get all the animals that exist. And first, it's going to split into protostomes and deuterostomes. Start with the protostomes first. These are going to be flatworms and arthropods. Now, the spine and organs are evolving through these stages. And you're going to get 6, which is 6 legs in an insect, and you're going to get 8 on an arthropod, like a spider, or arachnid more specifically. Now, these are radial life forms, like an X, square area. Always got to remember, area is square, and that's female, because that's going to be where everything is harbored, similar to a womb. And a clam, is X. And I believe this is where the word whore comes from, because horizontal. And of course, you have the black widow, which has the hourglass time. Now, also an octopi, 8 pi, has 8 legs. Like we have 8 lobes of our brain. Now, you take octopi, you get 25.13, which is roughly the circumference of the planet. Now, our planet is technically a mollusk in nature. It has all the properties of a mollusk and a eukaryotic cell. So it's technically a single-celled eukaryotic mollusk. And another thing tied to the female factor is the fact that the oceans were red in early Earth because of all the iron solution, iron saline water. Now, scientists say it was later on, but when you have mixed up iron in oceans, you're going to have red oceans before it all settles to the bottom and or gets pulled to the core because iron is dense. Now, the octopi has hemocyanin, which is 96 oxygen molecules, blue blood. We have red blood. Now, deuterostomes, what we are, you're going to have sea squirts, lancelets, sea tulips, the sea cucumber. All of this is a cylindrical body that can be in an X or Y position. Vertebra, spinal cord. Now, these eventually evolve into agnatha. This is going to be when the jaw starts to evolve. Ultimately, fish eels are going to come onto the scene, which is more of a fully formed jaw, pharyngeal, and the stomach starts coming onto the scene. You're going to have fish that have stomachs and some that don't. Now, scientists will tell you, we don't know why these fish lost their stomachs. Well, they never had stomachs. That's why. Some do, some don't. This is going to be the earliest stages of evolution of the stomach through the fish lineage. Now, these guys are going to diverge into 2 different ways, amphibians and super amphibians, which are going to ultimately evolve into mammals over time. Let's start with the amphibians. These guys are in x-axis. Here's the X again, or the cylindrical. The cylindrical starts to grow limbs, caecilian, salamander. Then the frog, bipedal. He uses hind locomotion. The caecilian is going to evolve towards cylindrical snakes, which are reptiles, and it's going to remain that way. This is why the snake or the serpent is doomed to be on its belly, because it's at the end of an evolutionary road. The caecilian itself diverges, and it grows limbs, which is why salamanders are closely related to a caecilian and they're amphibians, because they're in the same family. Now these guys are going to evolve 4 limbs. These are going to become the tetrapods. These are going to become lizards, reptiles. The frogs, on the other hand, they're going to end up standing up because they're hind locomotion, and they're going to end up standing up, evolving toward theropods, which ultimately will become birds. So the pattern still doesn't deviate. Now in our lineage, that super amphibian just happens to be the ichthyosaur. Now scientists claim it's a reptile. Even if it is a reptile, it's definitely a different type of reptile altogether from every other reptile. It's more mammal-like than any reptile. So if we evolved from reptiles, and if it was a reptile, technically this doesn't mean any of this is untrue at all. It still applies. This whole situation still applies. But ultimately, the properties of the ichthyosaur are more mammalian-like and more amphibian-like compared to a reptile. So I call it a super amphibian, just like Friedrich von Huene did. And these guys are going to evolve toward Archaeoceti, which are closer to whale, but still not quite whale yet. They're proto-whales. Then over time, they're going to evolve toward Mysticeti, which are toothless whales. And then over time, the toothless whales are going to adapt teeth, just like a baby would grow teeth. When they're born with no teeth, they grow teeth. So evolution doesn't deviate from that pattern either. We can literally observe a baby growing up and get a good beat on evolution. Now, at some point, the Satiartiodactyl, which are 4-limbed animals in an x-axis, will want to stand up in the vertical axis. And you're going to get animals that are rodent-like, legomorphic, even macropods. They have a prenatal hip. It's like they're still in the womb. And those legs are going to stretch out. And you're going to end up with primates. Now, of course, this guy's is still going to evolve. These hips are still going to exist. And you're going to have such animals like rodents, other species of marsupial. But ultimately, it goes from the 4-limbed x-axis to trying to stand up. And it's hopping before it's walking. And crawling before it's walking. And that's why chimps, gorillas, and other primates actually walk semi-bipedally. They don't walk on 2 legs all the time. They walk in 4 and they can stand up. So that's a stage before we become fully bipedal. This is a transition. And ultimately we come onto the scene. Our brain's not developed fully until we're 25 years old, which is the circumference of the planet, which is octopi. We have 8 lobes, just like the octopus has 8 limbs. And of course the octopus actually has a lot of the same biology that our brain does. When you put them side by side, you can see all the little organelles. The portions of the body of the octopus is actually just a portion of our brain. So we become fully biped. We're technically square. We have 4 limbs, 5 fingers. The 4 limbs are tied to the hemoglobin, which is square, 4, square area, globe, square the circle. Of course, the 5 toes. We have 26 bones in our feet, 27 in our hands. Now, technically, we had 27 before the ankle bone fused, becoming 26 to be able to support our weight. But of course, 26 ties to iron. We have 206 bones, 8 lobes. We have 12 cranial nerves. 12 times 8 is 96. And again, with the X and Y, the mammals are the alpha lineage, which is Y. All the egg layers are beta lineage, which is X. So yeah, we live in a biotron, which is an instrument of Bob. So tetragramma or tetragrammatron, Y, W, H, Y, man and woman. There's 5 here, 4, 3, and 3, which equals 20. 10 fingers, 10 toes. So there's fungus among us, and we're the fun guy.
Fungus among us! Let's get out of here before this fungus stuff eats us alive. Hey, the fungus just saved us.
Doctor's Law is day 243 in this.
9.
Portobello Purgatory. My only companion is a rock I named Stone. The question is, for whom am I narrating this? But it's all good, thanks to a breathable atmosphere and my supreme intellect.
So the egg layers across the board develop a type of microcephaly, whereas we stay in vitro in the waters over a longer period of time, develop in the brain, and come out of the water at the end of a wave in a macrocephalate, in a type of macrocephalic way. And since these guys are biped, like us, and they stand up, theropods, birds, and the frog, this hind locomotion. In our lineage, that's why we're going to evolve that, but we have a larger brain. We develop a macrocephaly. The human genome is 10% identical to the frogs, and 90% of our genome is given to cerebral development. And another part that ties into this is very significant in understanding too, is that sauropods and tetrapods are 2 different things. All sauropods are tetrapods, but not all tetrapods are sauropods. Now see how the horse's legs are positioned under it? Their legs are positioned to the sides. See, the bones are out to the sides here and not under it.